Okay, Kaddos Wall. This is our next story. It's a West African folk tale as told by Harold Corlander and George Herzog. In the town of Tendela in the kingdom of Seno, north of the Gulf of Guinea, there was a rich man by the name of Kaddo. His fields spread out on every side of his town. At plowing time, hundreds of men and boys hoed up his fields, and then hundreds of women and girls planted his corn seed in the ground for him. His grain bulged in his granary. I wonder what that means. Before looking at the bottom, try to see if you can figure out what it means. Because each season he harvested far more than he could use. The name of Kaddo was known far and wide throughout the kingdom of Seno. Travelers who passed through the town carried tales of his wealth and far beyond Seno's borders. One day, Kaddo called all of his people to the town of Tendela together for a big meeting in front of his house. They all came, for Kaddo was an important man, and they knew he was going to make an important announcement. "There's something that bothers me," said Kaddo. "I have been thinking about it for a long time, and I've lain awake worrying. I have so much corn in my granary that I don't know what to do with it." The people listened attentively and thought about Kaddo's words. Then a man said, "Some of the people in town have no corn at all. They're very poor and they have nothing. Why don't you give some of the corn to them?" Kaddo shook his head and said, "No, that isn't a very good idea. It doesn't satisfy me." Another man said to Kaddo, "Well then, you could lend the corn to the people who have had a bad harvest and have no seed for spring planting. That would be very good for the town and would keep poverty away." I wonder what poverty means. Well, you could lend the corn to people who have had a bad harvest and have no seed for spring planting. That would be very good for the town and would keep poverty away. See if you can figure out what that word means. "No," Kaddo said, "that is not a solution either." "Well then, why don't you sell some of your corn and buy cattle instead?" So still another man said. Kaddo shook his head. "No, it's not very good advice. It's hard for people to advise a rich man with problems like mine." Many people made suggestions, but nobody's advice suited Kaddo. He thought for a while, and at last he said, "Send me as many young girls as you can find. I will have them grind the corn for me." When people went away, they were angry with Kaddo, but the next day they sent 100 girls to work for him as he had asked. On 100 grindstones, they began to grind Kaddo's corn into flour. All day long, they put the corn into the grindstones and took the flour out. All day long, the people of the town heard the sound of the grinding at Kaddo's house. A pile of corn flour began to grow. For 7 days and 7 nights, the girls ground corn without a pause. This kind of reminds me of Prince Harwedo from the Magic Prison. What do you think? When the last grain of corn was ground into flour, Kaddo called the girls together and said, "Now, bring water from the spring. We shall mix it with the corn flour to make mortar out of it." So the girls brought water in water pots and mixed it with the flour to make thick mortar. Kaddo ordered them to make bricks out of the mortar. "When the bricks are dry, then I shall make a wall for them a wall of them around my house." I'm stopping here and thinking, foreshadow alert. He's making a wall out of corn, which is food, and there's people in poverty and people who are having troubles, but he's making a wall around his house. Is that giving us a clue or hint about what might happen next? Word went out that Kaddo was preparing to build a wall of flour around his house, and the people of the town came to his door and protested. "You can't do a thing like this. It's against humanity," they said. I wonder what humanity means. "You can't build a wall around your house. It's against humanity," they said. "It's not right. The people have no right to build walls with food," a man said. "Ah, what is right and what is wrong?" Kaddo said. "My right is different from yours because I am so very rich, so leave me alone. Corn is to eat so that you may keep alive," another said. "It's not meant to taunt those who are less fortunate." I wonder what taunt means. He's building a wall with food when people don't have food. When people are hungry, it is an affront to shut them out with a wall of flour, another man said. Ooh, another hint about the word taunt. Stop your complaints, Cato said. The corn is mine. It is my surplus, and I can't eat it all. It comes from my own fields, and I am rich. What good is it to be rich if you can't do what you want with your own property? The people of the town went away, shaking their heads in anger over Cato's madness. Do they mean he's angry, or do they mean he's crazy? 100 girls continued to make bricks of flour, which they dried in the sun. And when the bricks were dry, Cato told them to begin building the wall around his house. They used wet dough for mortar to hold the bricks together, and slowly the wall grew. They stuck cowrie shells into the wall to make beautiful designs, and then at last the wall was done. The last corn flour was used up. Cato was very proud. He walked back and forth and looked at his wall. He walked around it and he went in and out of the gate. He was so happy. And now when the people came to see him, they had to stand by the gate until he asked them to enter. When the workers who plowed and planted for Cato wanted to talk to him, Cato sat on the wall by the gate and listened to them and gave them orders. Oh, that does sound like Prince Harweda. And whenever people of the town wanted his opinion of the important matter, he sat down on his wall and gave it to them while they stood and just listened. Things went on like this for a long time. Cato enjoyed his reputation as the richest man for miles around, and the story of Cato's wall went to the farthest parts of the kingdom. And then one day there was a bad harvest for Cato. Aha, you see? There wasn't enough rain to grow the corn, and the earth dried up hard and dusty like the road. There wasn't a single ear of corn in all of Cato's fields and the fields of his relatives. The next year was the same. Cato had no seed corn left, so he sold his cattle and horses to buy corn for food. And seed for new planting. He sowed the corn again, but the next harvest time it was the same. There wasn't a single ear of corn in all of his fields. Year after year, Cato's crops failed, and some of his relatives died of hunger, and others went away to other parts of the kingdom of Sino, for they had no more seed corn to plant, and they couldn't count on Cato's help. Cato's workers ran away. I wonder if they could count on Cato, or is Cato maybe not showing integrity because they couldn't count on him? Cato's workers ran away because he was unable to feed them. Gradually, Cato's part of the town became deserted. All that he had left was a young daughter and a mangy donkey. When his cattle and his money were all gone, Cato began to feel very hungry. He scraped away a little bit of flour wall and ate it. The next day, he scraped away more flour wall and ate it. The wall got lower and lower. Little by little, it disappeared. The day came when the wall was gone and nothing was left but the elegant structure Cato had built around his house, and on which he used to sit and listen to the people of the town when they came to ask him to lend him a little seed corn. Then Cato realized, is this the climax where Cato figures things out? Then Cato realized that if he was to live any longer, he must get help from somewhere. He wondered who he would help him, not the people of Tandela, for he had insulted and mistreated them, and they would not have anything to do with him. There was only one man that he could go to, Sogol, king of the Ghana people, who had a reputation of being very rich and generous, something Cato is not. So Cato and his daughter got to the mangy, underfed donkey and rode 7 days until they arrived in the land of Ghana. Sogol sat before his royal house when Cato arrived. He had a soft skin to put the ground next to him for Cato to sit upon, and he had millet brew brought for the two of them to drink. Well, stranger in the land of Ghana, take a long drink, for you have a long trip behind you if you come from Tandela, Sogol said. Thank you, but I can't drink much, Cato said. Why is that? Sogol said. When people are thirsty, they drink. That is true, Cato replied, but I've been very hungry too long and my stomach is shrunk. Well, drink in peace then, because now you are my guest and you won't be hungry. You shall have whatever you need from me. Cato nodded his head solemnly and drank a little millet brew. And now tell me, Sogol said, you say you come from the town of Tandela in the kingdom of Seno? I've heard many tales of that town. The famine there came there and drove out many people because they had no corn left. Yes, Cato said, hard times drove them out and the corn was all gone. But tell me, there was a rich and powerful man in Tandela named Cato, wasn't there? Whatever happened to him? Is he still alive? Yes, he is still alive, Cato said. If a fabulous man, this Cato, Sogol said. They say he built a wall of flour around his house out of his surplus crops. And when he talked to his people, he sat on the wall by his gate. Is this true? It is true, said Cato sadly. Does he still have many cattle as he used to, Sogol said. No, they are all gone. It is an unhappy thing for a man who owns so much to come to so little, Sogol said. But doesn't he have many servants and workers still? His workers and servants are all gone, Cato said. Of all of his great household, he has only one daughter left. The rest went away because there was no money and no food. Sogol looked melancholy. What is a rich man when his cattle are gone and his servants have left him? But tell me, what happened to the wall of flour that he built around his house? He ate the wall, Cato said. Each day he scraped a little flour from the wall until it was all gone. A strange story, Sogol said. What? But such is life. And he thought quietly for a while about the way life goes for people sometimes. And then he asked, and were you by any chance one of Cato's family? Indeed, I was one of Cato's family. Once I was rich. Once I had more cattle than I could count. Once I had so many cornfields, and once I had hundreds of workers cultivating my crops. Once I had a bursting granary. Once I was Cato, the great personage of Tandela. He admits it. What? You yourself are Cato? Yes, once I was proud and lordly, and now I sit in rags begging for help. What can I do for you? Sogol asked. I have nothing left now. Give me some seed corn so that I can go back and plant my fields again. Take what you need, Sogol said. He ordered his servants to bring bags of corn and load them into Cato's donkey. Cato thanked him humbly, and he and his daughter started the return trip to Tandela. They traveled for 7 days. On the way home, Cato became very hungry. He hadn't seen so much corn for a long time. As he was bringing back from the kingdom of Ghana, he took a few grains and put them in his mouth and chewed them. Once more, he put a few more grains in his mouth. And then he put a whole handful in his mouth and swallowed. He couldn't stop. He ate, and he forgot that this was the corn which he was to plant his fields. And then he arrived in Tandela. He went to bed to sleep. And when he arose the next morning, he ate again, and he ate so much corn that he became sick. He went to his bed again and cried out in pain because his stomach had forgotten what to do with food. And before long, Cato died. Oh my, nothing like Prince Harweda. Cato's grandchildren and great-grandchildren in the kingdom of Seno are poor to this day. And to the rich men of this country, the common people sometimes say, don't build a wall of flour around your house. I think that there is a moral to this story.